Everything cool?
Yep.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Ben Rudolph, and I'm a person in active recovery. I have recovered from a hopeless situation, and the nice people at ROSC have asked me to come and share my story with you all. I'm an employee at Chestnut Health Systems. I'm a recovery specialist for the McLean County Court System and the recovery court programs and their drug court programs. As a recovering person, I share my experience, strength, and hope with those people in our programs who suffer from addiction and mental illness sometimes, and try to do what I can to be a good example and try to do what I can to help people, like I say, with my story, with helping them focus on their lives and try to do something to improve their lives. I guess I'll start by saying that I was born and raised in a town called Waukegan, Illinois, a blue-collar town, working class neighborhood. Both of my parents worked. I have a half-sister who's about 15 years older than me, so I was essentially an only child. Since both of my parents worked, I was what was known as a latchkey kid. I don't know if that's something that people know what that is, but basically I was left to my own devices. As a kid growing up, I had my own key to the house. My parents were working all the time, and so I had a lot of time on my own. As a kid, I was a very quiet and shy person. As a kind of an only child, I lived a kind of a secret, quiet life and didn't have many friends. I played sports but wasn't necessarily good at them. I liked music and theater, and I was pretty good at that. I enjoyed doing those things. And in my neighborhood, that wasn't a thing that was readily accepted. So I was kind of an outcast in that way. Well, first of all, I want to say that I don't blame my parents. My parents did the very best that they could. They stayed together. They were present in my life, even though they worked all the time. And the choices I made were my own. And the choices that I made were those choices that what a lonely kid makes, I guess, who longs to belong. So I wanted to belong. I wanted to be a part of something. I wanted to have friends. I wanted to be known, I wanted to have a girlfriend, all these things when you're a young kid, 13, 14 years old. And I didn't have any of those things. And so you meet up with people in the neighborhood, and at 14 years old, a young guy said, hey, you drink, don't you? You smoke weed, don't you? And wanting to be friends, wanting to get along, wanting to be a part of, I said, yeah, of course. And I had never had a drink or a drug before, but that evening everything changed. And I guess I was the kind of person that when I took that first drink and I took that first drug, something popped in my head. Something changed inside of me. And my inhibitions were lowered, and I became a different person. The first time I drank and used to oblivion. And it was from that point that I believe I started behaving in an alcoholic and addicted way. I identify as an alcoholic because alcohol was the first drug I used. But once I used alcohol, anything was fair game. I don't think it matters really much what drug you used. To me, I believe in the NA credo that says a drug is a drug is a drug. I used it to get out of myself, to try to be something different, to try to feel in a different way, to belong to a group. And I found that group, and we hung out together, and we formed a loose band of dudes, and we got in fights and ran around, and cops chased us around, and it was exciting, man. It was fun. My parents never found out. I never got arrested. I just got drunk all the time. I wonder sometimes if I wouldn't have been a better athlete, because I played on all kinds of sports teams while I drank and smoked and used drugs. If I'd attended to those things, I might have been a better athlete, I think. But I didn't. I lived a double life. One part of my life was the cute little kid who got decent grades and didn't mess up, and the other one happened on the weekends, drank to excess, was aggressive and loud, something that I never was. My parents were very quiet people. They just did their job and they tried their best. Anyway, that was the beginning of my story of drinking and using and trying to belong to a group. And it progressed for many, many years. College was a big party. My parents worked hard so that they could afford to send me to college, so that I could study theater and music, so I could find and follow my dream. After 3 years of that, my dream became, I want to get drunk and high all the time. I couldn't really memorize any lines for plays that I was in. I moved off into studying music more directly. After 3 years at college, I left and I moved to Chicago, where I lived for about 24 years. I got involved in a nightclub scene. I got involved with hanging around with those people, those cabaret type people, those nightlife people. I got involved with musicians who taught me how to play jazz music. I was a professional jazz musician in Chicago for a good 20 years. And I lived that nightlife. I didn't see the light of day. I was Count Dracula. I lived that nightlife. And it was full of all the crazy people. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't say, man, that was fun. I enjoyed that. How drunk we all got, how stoned we were, how high everybody was. You wouldn't believe the stories if I told you. So I'm not going to tell you. I played in all kinds of venues, restaurants, nightclubs, shitholes, hell places, anything, some studio work. I was a pretty good player. But something happened somewhere on the road. I met a woman and fell in love, got married, we had a kid. I still continued living the nightlife, working as a bartender. I thought that was a brilliant choice for a guy who likes to drink all the time. It was right there. One for you, one for me. And over a night, it's like every night I was absolutely blackout drunk. I don't know how my cash register balanced, but somehow it did. In between, I played gigs, I worked as a bartender, I did all of those type of things, and lived a funny, wild, swinging life. And there was a lot of things that was great about it, man. It was just a lot of fun. And the problem came, I guess, is when the fun started grinding down. When alcohol and drugs start doing their number on you, and what was hip and cool and fun and relaxing and like, wow, started changing on me. It started turning on me. It was like that great friend who all of a sudden turned on me and became an enemy. And it became difficult for me to concentrate. It became difficult for me to remember what song I'm playing. And I'd shout out to the bass player, hey man, what song are we playing? Where are we in this tune? I'd forget. Halfway through a tune I was playing, I'd start playing something else. I started thinking that my mind was playing tricks on me. I started making excuses. I started not getting asked to be played on these gigs. I started being really angry with customers at the bar, wanting to be in fights. All of a sudden, this happy-go-lucky, funny, goofy guy was turning into a mean person. I was scaring my wife. I was scaring my kid. My wife actually came to me and says, I'm going to be leaving you because I'm afraid of you. I'm afraid of what you're going to do when I come home at night. I'm afraid of what I'm going to walk into with our child. And so I'm going to have to leave you. And she had been going to the Al-Anon thing, where we separate with love. She didn't hate me. I think the thing that hurt me the most is that it wasn't a wild argument. It was just her stating what was going on with her and what she had to do. And so I broke down. I cried. I didn't beg her not to leave me, but I said I needed to get some help. I needed to figure out what's going on, because this wasn't the game plan. This is what I planned to do. But somehow this was my reality. So after Thanksgiving in 2003, with my house an absolute wreck, because I used Thanksgiving as a great excuse to get bombed out of my head, I decided that Ben Rudolph needed to do something about his life. I didn't think that much could be salvaged, since from 14 to 44, had a 5-year-old girl, my daughter, living in the house. I just figured that I would be a bum for the rest of my life. And even sober, I didn't give myself much of a chance. I was just a lost soul and was going to be a lost soul. But I had to give it a try. I had to try to do something. Before I had crashed and burned, before that party, I had lost 3 jobs in 5 weeks. I was nothing and nobody. And I lived and worked predominantly on Rush Street in Chicago. And Rush Street in Chicago is just like any small town. People don't realize that about big cities. That to me, they're conglomerations of little towns, all pushed together and connected by buses and trains. So that little town hired and fired me 3 times in 5 weeks, and I couldn't get a job. I was unemployable. I was unemployed and unemployable, uneducated and ineducable. I was mush. And so I did whatever I thought I could. There was a place in my neighborhood called the 12-Step House. If you're familiar with Chicago, go to Damon and Sunnyside. It's a former funeral home. And a guy I met there said this place used to work with stiffs, and it's still working with stiffs. Except that the stiffs are drunks and not dead people, not dead yet. So I went into there, I went to my first meeting, and I don't know how they knew me, but I used to walk by there and peer in the window and say, God help me if I ever end up in a place like this. And guess what? God helped me, and I ended up in a place like that. And so I walked into my first 12-step meeting, my first AA meeting, and the guy sitting at the door, it was like a clubhouse, so you could go there anytime. And that's what I did. I had done my research and found out when the meeting was. And after standing across the street and shivering for a long time, I decided I'd walk up those steps. It was called the 12-Step House, and the steps to walk up to that place was 12 steps. And I stopped about halfway up, and I believe that God pushed me up the next 6 stairs. The guy greeted me at the door, and he took one look at me, and he said, pal, you're in the right place. Just go in the room, get a cup of coffee. The meeting's about to start. And that's where it all began with me. And my wife never did leave me. She still hung around, even though she said she was going to leave and protect her child. She stuck around. I went into what they call withdrawal. I didn't know what that was. I worked day labor. I don't know if you all know what day labor is. A bunch of winos go into a room in a place in a bad neighborhood and we stand in a room and shiver and we wait for somebody, a contractor, a truck driver, somebody who needs help to pick you. And I got picked by a guy who drove a truck for UPS. He was half my age. And he explained it to me. He says, if you shit on yourself, you're done. If you piss on yourself, you're done. If you puke in my truck, you're done. And I mean, I don't care where we are. You get out and you walk back. He says, this is the deal, buddy. You take the package, you ring the doorbell, you get a signature. You screw up on a signature and you're done. And I sat on that truck. Those UPS trucks had a fold-out thing, and I held on. It was the middle of winter. I had my knit hat pulled down over my eyes, and I held on for dear life and said, please, God, don't let me puke in this truck. I made about $40 a day. I was managing somehow. While being in withdrawal, I didn't realize that until I went to see a doctor, and he says, you know, you were probably in withdrawal. You know, you could have died. But being in a 12-step program taught me to learn how to have and to rely on a higher power, a power of my own making. My power for me is music. It's always been that thing for me. It's always been that thing greater than myself. It's always been that bottomless pit. It's always been that thing, that great power, that calm and serene place where I can sit in front of the piano and play a little something for me and my God. And so, if you ever see me at a piano, the first thing I say is, God, you call the keys, you call the tunes, you call the tempos. And that's where I give myself over. That's where I have my spiritual experiences. That's where I have my joy, my serenity. That's the thing that keeps me sane. I don't know what your higher power is. If you have something else, I'd love to hear about it. Because I love the idea of something greater than myself. Whether it's the goodness of people, whether it's something positive and affirming in our lives, our families, whatever it is that it is, I'm glad that you have it. My mom had a higher power that was out the kitchen window. And it looked like to me like it lived in a tree outside there. And she would pray and look up there and say, God, please help my son. At that time, it made me furious. Now I understand. It was simple, and it was clear, and it was something she could understand, and connect with. And that's all a higher power needs to be so far as I'm concerned. So I don't like to tell all the drinking stories. I like to talk about the good stuff. I got clean. I got sober. I got my life back together. My wife didn't leave me. My child cares about me and wants to tell me about her life. I have a job. I wear clothes. They're clean clothes. I don't stink. I'm not walking around thinking about beating people up for reasons I can't explain to you. I don't know why I wanted to beat everybody up. I was frustrated, angry, and lost. I have some serenity in my life, and these are the things that my recovery brings to me. And that's why I want to share. Because I laid on the floor, man. I laid on the floor in Chicago. My wife was gone. My kid was gone. I was just left alone during the day. I was trying to figure out what the fuck am I going to do with myself? How am I going to get out of this thing? And so I didn't know how to pray because I didn't really believe in God. And I laid on the floor in my apartment in Chicago, and I focused at a crack in the ceiling. And I said a prayer to that crack. And that prayer was, God, please help me. I know that I'm not much of a praying guy, and I'm not sure that you really exist. But if you do, you have a creation of yours that's in deep fucking shit, man, and I need help. Please help me, God. And I said, God, if you can get me out of this, if you can find a way for me to live a decent and whole life, I will dedicate my life to you and whatever it is that you want from me. Like Elwood Blues and the Blues Brothers would say in that, I'm on a mission from God. And that's what it's all about for me. God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. So I got up off the floor and I did something. I humbled myself. It wasn't for many, many months later. And 2 sponsors fired me because I wasn't doing anything in the program. I was just kind of huddling in the back, But I finally found somebody after we moved to another town, Birmingham, Alabama, which was where my wife had a job offer, and so we went there because I had nothing going on, and there was no way we could sustain ourselves in Chicago, so we moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and that's where I met Frank, who was my sponsor, and we worked on the steps together. I was able to, do all of those things that AA 12-step programs requires. I was certain that it wouldn't work for me. It seemed too simple to do or just kind of weird. How would just talking with another person? But I got a chance to be honest. I got a chance to open up with another person who suffered like I did. My whole experience in any kind of 12-step group is a feeling of coming home, of being with people who know and understand me, even if they don't even know my name. So I've been doing this for about 17 and a half years. One of the things my sponsor taught me is that you can't live your life in 12-step rooms. So 12-step program and programming and doing steps is important, but you need to be able to do this in the world. You need to be able to find your way by using these steps in your daily life. So over time, I have separated a bit from my 12-step experience. I still go. It's not as incredibly important as it once was, where I felt I had to go every day, sometimes twice a day. Everything was bothering me. My emotions got the best of me. I'm a very emotional person, and I have to learn how to handle those emotions in a grown-up and adult way, without screaming, without hollering, without hitting somebody. And I've learned how to do that. I've been in counseling. I've done a couple of stints of counseling, which has been very helpful. Helped me with those things that 12-step programs couldn't and weren't designed to help with. So that I found good counseling, a good therapist, somebody who allowed me to be honest, to share those emotions, to get that stuff out of me, to talk about all of those things that bothered me, that made me angry and upset, whether it's my fault or not. I get a chance to put that stuff out into the world, and then once it's out into the world, to kind of sort through it and to figure out what I'm going to do with these crazy emotions that I'm feeling. I don't find being emotional a shortcoming. I find being emotional a positive thing, a good thing, a strength-giving thing. I finally get to feel. I think every young man who grows up hears something like, big boys don't cry, or suck it up, or, you're a crybaby, don't do that. I finally get a chance to feel. I finally get a chance to be what it's like to be a human being and experience the world in all the terrible, horrible, awful, wonderful, exciting, thrilling things that life is. Life throws us everything. We all go through terrible suffering. We all go through terrible pain. We all go through all kinds of wonderful and exciting experiences. And spiritual experience, which I thought was going to be a rare and strange thing, man, if I could ever get it, to me now is a regular occurrence. You have to know what it is to experience what it is. And I can have spiritual experiences all the time, man, because what is a spiritual experience? But experiencing the world in real time and seeing the miracle of your life and existence in some way that is mind-opening and mind-expanding. You know, it's funny to me that they call alcohol spirits. It's funny to me that they call getting intoxicated getting high. Because that's all I really wanted to do. I wanted to leave this world in some way. I wanted to experience it at a higher level, man. I wanted to have a spiritual experience. I didn't know that then. But that's why I got high. That's why I got drunk. That's why I did those things. I wanted to experience something unique, something rare. And as a person who is in recovery, who is alive to every moment, man, whatever it is, my higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, saved me. There's no doubt in my mind that if I'd have stayed on the same path that I was on, I'd be dead now. And I'm not saying that in any way, I don't know, to shock you or whatever. I just think that I would have died. Or I'd be some crazy guy walking down the street begging for coin. So I believe that whatever that God is, whatever that spirit is, it saved me and lifted me up. I was able and willing to do what that positive spirit in this universe we live in was guiding me to do. And so every day is a spiritual experience, man. Everything I do can be a spiritual experience as long as I'm seeing the big picture, the God picture. You know, all these little things that we fight through, our job, our boss, our wives or spouses, or this guy in the grocery store who's rude to me, and we get into the smallness of life and we're pissed off, and I'm going to get this guy, I'm going to teach you, you guys don't know anything, society is hurting me or whatever, man. Those are small picture things, man. I like big picture things, like the sky, like the sun, like breathing, man, like just being alive and aware and awake to whatever. I can make a mistake and screw things up, and I do it every day, all day sometimes. And I don't have the luxury of saying, well, I was high, or I was hungover, or I was loaded, man, and that's why I did that. I made a mistake because I decided to do this, and at the time it seemed like the right thing, and I thought it through, and now that I've done the wrong thing, I wonder how that happened. But I'm a human being, and God made me this way. God made me marvelously and imperfectly and strangely and weirdly. I'm an eccentric person. That's just the way I am. I'm an emotional person. That's the way I was made. Whatever it is. I'm not particularly macho. Oh well, I am Ben. I am Ben Rudolph. I am happy and proud to be who I am. I am a child of my God, and I get to live my life the way my higher power sees fit for me to do. And I try to stay in touch with that spirit, with that feeling, with that goodness. God, let me help someone or something today, and at the very least, let me cause no harm. I'm going to finish this talk with the prayer that I give every day. God, I give myself to you. Absolutely and completely and without any reservation whatsoever. I pray for knowledge of your will and the power to carry it out. Thy will be done in all things great and small. Thy will be done. Please help me, guide me, teach me, show me how to live. Help me to make it through just one more day. God bless you all. Thank you for letting me share my story, and go in peace. And I hope you find the things that you're looking for in life.